Over to domestic news now. The Friday massacre that stunned the sleepy town of Virginia Beach left 12 victims, plus the shooter dead. DeWayne Craddock, a 40-year-old civil engineer and former U.S. Coast Guard, went on a shooting rampage at a municipal building where he worked. His motive not yet known, but Craddock apparently resigned his post just hours before the shooting. Police officials have described Craddock as, quote, disgruntled, but have yet to explain. Craddock's bosses say he was an employee in good standing with no history of disciplinary action. Our next guest has penned an article calling into question the number of these shootings being perpetrated by military veterans and what the significance of that is. David Swanson, investigative journalist, is joining us now. First, David, in your write-up, you say that 35% of mass shooters are or were military veterans. Can you tell us where you got that number and how this is significant?
Yeah, well, I took a database that Mother Jones magazine had produced some time back, and I started doing searches for each of the names of each of the killers in their list of mass shooters. That is, single individuals, at least 4 victims other than the shooter dead in the incident, and so forth. And I didn't find a single one reported as not having been in the military. I did find over 35% of them reported somewhere as having been in the U.S. military. I'm sure it's more if I had time to do more research, and that's over twice what you would expect for that age group and that gender, that is to say male. And so the Mother Jones has just this week updated their database, so I'm hoping to find time this week to go and look through there. I'm certain that with more research and because of recent incidents, it has actually gone up and is significantly more than 35%.
Now, your title called "You Can Almost Count on Each New Mass Shooter Being a Veteran" is quite provocative and even offensive to probably millions of veterans out there and their families. Is it fair to engender that sort of fear narrative, David?
Well, I respectfully doubt that you've asked millions of veterans and their families. I have received numerous compliments on the article from veterans, and I sort of, I don't rely on readers to know the fact that veterans vastly outnumber mass shooters, so I tell them that in every article and every interview, that ridiculously obvious fact that veterans vastly outnumber mass shooters. But if we're going to look at mass shooters and look at the factors that contribute, the presence of guns, how many of them are male, how many of them are poor, how many of them have mental health issues, how many of them have abused women, why would we not want to also look at how many of them have been trained to shoot guns at public expense by the U.S. military? Why would we avoid that fact? And if I said how many of them have mental health issues or how many of them have abused their wives, I don't think I would be accused of offending all people with mental health issues or all wife beaters.
So there have been 157 mass shootings in the U.S. in just 2019 already, and we've just started June, literally almost every other day. Mass shootings, as defined by the FBI, involve at least 4 victims in the single incident. Most of these are not high-profile incidents like Las Vegas, the Las Vegas massacre, or the Dillon Roof, South Carolina church shooting, or the Pulse nightclub in Florida. These are daily occurrences, for example, like gang-related shootings in Chicago. These aren't veteran-related incidents, though. What about that?
Well, I don't think you know, and I certainly don't, how many of them are veteran-related incidents, and I don't think any victims are more important than any other victims. But what I was looking at here was what Mother Jones was looking at in their report, a certain category of tragedy, that is, incidents involving a single shooter. And I think it's important to look at those and to look at other types of violence and to understand the connection that both types of tragedy are happening in a society racked by a culture of war and violence and glorification of guns. They are related, but I think we can look at, for causes somewhat distinctly in these different types of killings.
Now, I think it's fair to say that there's no, one-size-fits-all for any type of mass shooting. And you kind of touched on this just a moment ago. Is the bigger picture here how desensitized Americans have become with the thousands of gun deaths that we witness every year?
It's incredible how normalized it has become. Within the past week, I saw a host on Fox News Network together with a congressman named Duncan Hunter from California on there as a guest, both claiming that they committed premeditated murder in wars in Iraq or Afghanistan, and that's all anyone ever does in wars. And if you're going to lock any warrior up for premeditated murder, you have to lock up every soldier. Not as if premeditated murder has anything wrong with it, as if it's perfectly acceptable to commit premeditated murder. That's on a major television network in the United States of America.
Yeah, so, and here we are, the people watching this and people watching Fox or watching MSNBC or people reading Mother Jones. We read about all these shootings, these incidents, as if they're normal, acceptable everyday things like going to Starbucks for a cup of coffee. Real briefly, can you touch on, like you said, the culture of war that has now created, you know, the society that we live in today, that this is just going to Starbucks?
It's not just a culture of war that blows back in this and 18 other disastrous ways, but it's a culture of isolation and exceptionalism. So everybody asks each other, how do you solve this problem? As if the other 96% of humanity doesn't exist. As if New Zealand didn't just have a similar disaster and do something in response to it. As if Australia didn't have a similar disaster years ago and do something in response to it. The United States isolates its thinking from the rest of the world, refuses to learn from any examples set elsewhere, and so deals with problems as if they are somehow inherent in human nature and unsolvable. That's a tragic situation in our society in this and many other topics.
All right, we've got to leave it right there. David Swanson, appreciate your take on this today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.